Nutrition is a resource. Like it or not, food is medicine. What you put into your body is what you're going to turn your body into, right? If you're putting healthy into your body, you're going to get healthy. If you're putting junk into your body, you're going to get junk. It's kind of like going to the gas station with a really nice, fancy car, luxury brand, and filling up with the unleaded gasoline. That car will only run for so long before it's going to need some replacement parts. Whereas if you're using the premium brand, you're going to get more use out of the vehicle, right? So we have to talk about nutrition when we talk about health. Like, it's just the foundation that we need to be very aware of. And why is this? Let's look at this slide right here. You see a picture of the body. Nutrition affects every single part of your body. Every part of your body is affected by what kind of nutrients it's getting, what kind of vitamins, what kind of health that you're putting into it. Not only that, but I've learned through my research for anxiety and panic that most of your brain chemicals are produced in your gut. So where your food digests, that is also producing those good chemicals, the serotonin, the dopamine, the oxytocin. I think that's it. I always want to say Oxycontin, but I think that's the drug. I think oxytocin is the hormone. All of those things are produced in your gut. If your gut is not healthy, the rest of your body is going to suffer because everything happens in your gut digestively. So your body takes your food that you're eating and it squeezes out all the minerals and vitamins that it can get, and it sends it into your cells, right? So we need to make sure that we're paying attention to the gut specifically. That's a foundation of your nutrition. If you have struggles in your gut, you're also going to have struggles with trying to supplement your health. I know a lot of people, because they don't eat well on a regular basis, they just try to do a lot of vitamins and supplements. But if you haven't taken care of your gut, if you're not eating at least semi-healthy and your gut's messed up, it's not going to process those supplements, those vitamins, all of the things like it normally would. And so you're not going to get as much out of those things like if you're trying to supplement. So you can see here all of the benefits to eating healthy. I wanted to show those here because it's so much you get from your diet. So many benefits, so many resources, so many benefits of the resource of nutrition. So let's talk about how to do nutrition, because there are millions of resources out there that you could be reading or listening to. You know, there's podcasts, there's cookbooks, there's diets, there's programs, there's education, there's whole college degrees formed around nutrition, right? And so I just want to point out a few things that are going to help you when you're looking at how to best provide nutrition for your body. First of all, we need to avoid being overwhelmed by it. Some of these diets are very extreme and tend to be trendy and fads because people can't keep it up long term, right? It just gets overwhelming. There's just too much that you're trying to do there. And so especially when we're starting out, if you're wanting to change and see shifts in your nutrition, and because of that in your body, you want to avoid being overwhelmed. We want to always start with consistent baby steps. As small as steps, remember we talked about that in the course concepts, the smallest steps you can take while also being effective and building a lifestyle, because you want your nutrition to become a lifestyle. You want to live a lifestyle that is healthy in what you eat. So some of the baby steps that you can start with is just swapping things. Swap this for that. That's a lot of the ways that I started to change my nutrition, because I would go into these diet modes because I knew that I needed to do something better, or, you know, somebody would talk me into doing something better. There's a lot of peer pressure around what you eat. And so I would just cut out a ton of stuff and try to live that way. And eventually what happens is you get tired of it and then you just binge eat, right? So you just binge the things that you've cut out and been missing. So start by trying to swap out things. Swap out, if you're cooking with a lot of hydrogenated oils like vegetable oil or, any of those oils. Sorry, you probably hear the chicken in the background. My chickens are probably laying out there. Anyway, speaking of nutrition, nutritious eggs. But if you will just cut out those oils and swap it for like extra virgin olive oil, that's all we use in our house anymore. And that has made such a huge difference because those, chemical-ridden oils that a lot of times we use in our cooking and to fry our foods and to, it's in a lot of fast foods. Those things are so damaging to your body and to your brain. And so just swapping out that, sometimes just swapping out one thing can make a huge difference. And speaking of that, drinking more water. When we swap out any of our hydration for water, like just plain water, I know a lot of people will say, well, I hate water. I don't like water. But water is the source of life. And the more that you drink it, you will like it more. I used to hate water too. I used to only drink Kool-Aid. And I mean like drink the Kool-Aid. That was me. I would buy 10 packets of Kool-Aid every time I went to the grocery store. And then as soon as I would run out of a packet, I'd make another packet. Kool-Aid is horrible because it's got all the dyes and stuff in it. But then on top of that, you're adding like cups of sugar to it, right? So it was just not good for me. So swapping out the Kool-Aid for water. Some people, it's soft drinks, like Coke or Dr. Pepper. Everything in moderation, those things you can use as like treats or rewards, for different things in your week. But for the most part, if you will swap those out for water as much as you can, you will see a huge change in your life. Even being slightly dehydrated, even the smallest amount of dehydration changes how your body has to operate to get you through the day. So you will see big gains if you will start with what you're drinking. That brings us to the next point. Make a plan. You have got to have a plan if you're going to change your nutrition because nobody does it accidentally, right? Nobody wakes up one day and accidentally eats a salad or accidentally leaves off the donuts or accidentally says, I'm going to go get water instead of that Coke that I really want. So you want to make a plan. And this plan needs to include some of the stuff that you really enjoy because you still want to enjoy your food. You still want to enjoy your life. But nobody enjoys feeling cruddy all the time. And if you're just eating those things that feel enjoyable all the time, it's going to lead you down a path that's ultimately going to affect your health. And so we want to make a plan that includes some of that enjoyment, but also includes the healthy stuff and is very intentional about getting healthy into our diet. If you will just start including more vegetables in that plan, including more fruits in that plan, switching fruit for dessert, like, you crave something dessert-wise, you find a fruit to have instead, that kind of thing. Making, your meals, centering your meals around really healthy food items. Make a meal plan, have a meal plan. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but the point is to be intentional. You need to have something somewhere where you can be intentional, whether that's one of those, meal plans that you just stick on your fridge and then you're writing down each week what you're going to have, or, if you have a planner, if you want to do something on the computer, if there's an app on your phone. Some people are talking about this certain app now that, helps plan your meals for you and makes them, healthy, and then just spits out the grocery list for you. So there's plenty of things like that you can come up with. But the bottom line is you're going to have to plan. You're not going to change your nutrition accidentally or, just along the way. So you want to make sure that you have some kind of plan. Also, if you're going to follow some kind of diet plan, if you've come across something, you can try out different things for your body. I'm not a huge fan of diets at all because I feel like they're too extreme. And I feel like anytime you get into the extremes, there's some exhaustion that comes in somewhere, and that's going to be a ripe situation for a crash, right? So I'm not a huge diet person. I do, though, recommend that you might try like a Whole30 type thing, and that's just 30 days of cutting out a lot of the food groups. But this is to find out, once you've gone through the 30 days and you've cut all that out, then you start to add it back in gradually. And that kind of helps you to find out what your system likes, what it doesn't like. There's other ways of doing that as well. Like I've taken an Everlywell food analysis test to see, what I was allergic to. And that kind of helped. It could kind of help you stay away from certain things. You have to have eaten those type of foods within a certain time period, though, for it to show up in your blood and actually show up on the test. But another way to do that is Whole30. So take 30 days and you're just eating a few food groups. I can't remember what all it is. I don't want to get it wrong, so you'll have to look it up. But then after you get done with that, you can add those foods gradually back in different groups and see how it affects your body, how it affects your digestive system. Sometimes your body's just not healthy enough to have certain food groups. I believe a lot of people that are gluten-free and dairy-free, I get it that they might be allergic to it at the time, but I've seen too many people get over certain allergies with time or with healing. So the more we heal our bodies, the more food groups, they're able to handle. Get back up. You make a plan, but you mess up. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have days where you're just done. You're going to have, the other day I threw a party for my girls, and it was an ice cream party. And part of the setup that I put out was a bunch of different candies. And, I mentioned in the first video of this module that I was a big sugar, still am a big sugar person. But when I was growing up, like candy, I would sneak candy. Like I ate candy constantly. And so I've tried to avoid like heavy sugar items entirely. Like, candy, unless it's like dark chocolate. still get that dark chocolate in because that's technically healthy, right? But I don't eat it all the time, but that's, if I want to indulge, that's where I'm going to indulge. So anyway, we had all this leftovers from this party, and I just found myself like going in there and, in stressful situations and being like, ooh, candy, I have candy. And like, I couldn't get it off my mind until finally I just had to take all the leftover bags and just throw them in the trash. I was just like, you know what? It's not worth it. It didn't cost that much that I want to mess up my health with it. And so I just ended up throwing it away. But I had a few days where I was just really bad about like stuffing in the sugar. And that gets very demoralizing, right? You want to just kind of give up and just say, well, I'm just a sugar person. I can't help it. And then all of a sudden, you've fallen off the wagon, so to speak, of your healthy. That's why we want it to be a lifestyle and not a diet, because I've created a lifestyle to where I had a few bad days and I threw that candy away, and then I just got back up and got back on track and just said, okay, starting over, trying again. Not even starting over, just continuing with what I was doing well and stopping the things that I wasn't doing well. And that's really what we need to do in all of life is just find those things that are going to be the best for us, be the best for our bodies, continue in those, and leave behind those things that are just not serving us well, those habits that are not serving us well. The last thing on this, don't obsess. when we get obsessive about our diet, when we get really derogatory towards ourselves, when we mess up, when we're just really strict about things, we tend to live in the areas of guilt and shame. And so we just take a lot of guilt and a lot of shame on ourselves if we make a mistake, if we have a bad day, if we stop doing something that's not serving us well. Sometimes we need to quit, Sometimes you'll start a diet and you'll realize this is not doing well with my body, and you need to quit that and move on to something else. But guilt and shame can keep you from doing that, right? Because you feel like you're failing at something. We can't become obsessive about our nutrition, about, dieting. It's the same for any of these resources. They're gifts, and they're going to help us become healthy the more that we implement them and the more that we use these resources. But the minute that we start to become obsessive, we take away some of that health that we're obtaining from these things, because it's not mentally healthy anymore. And that not being mentally healthy is going to affect our physical health and kind of neutralize the benefits that we're getting from the nutrition. We've seen that happen to people where they just get so extreme about their diet that they literally become horribly unhealthy. And they're, based on their nutrition. So don't obsess about this. Let's talk about some supplies that you can use to implement some better nutrition into your life. One of the things I've already mentioned is a meal plan. It is very good for you to have a plan every week. I just do it like on Sunday nights when I'm doing, or not Sunday nights, Saturday nights when I'm doing my grocery list. I kind of, as I'm doing my list, I meal plan, and I just want to make sure that I have those. We do 6 dinners because we eat out one night a week, or we have food that already prepared food one night a week, one day a week. And so I do those I do those 6 meals. And then I do the grocery list and all the ingredients. I put all the ingredients into my cart for those. And then, lunches for us are flexible. So I just get lunch food, like whatever you keep in your house is what you're going to eat, right? So I just try to get the healthiest things. We do snacks because we have 7 people living here, my husband and then my 5 children, 3 of which are adults and transitioning adults into the real world. And so they don't eat at home as much. But for my husband and my 2 girls, and I try to do extra for them. We do some snacks, some things that people like that aren't necessarily that healthy. I try to make them healthier snacks, but they're not necessarily good for you. But I limit that, and then I try to work the list around healthier foods. And then, breakfast the same way. We have chicken, so we have fresh eggs. Almost every morning, somebody's making eggs. And so, that's kind of how I run my meal plan. Food prep. Once you get your groceries into your house, you want to go ahead and prep them for the week. A lot of times when you're hungry, like you're just ready to go grab something. I think one of the hardest things about eating healthy is preparing, right? Because you're eating healthier, most of your food is coming from home, and so you're making it from scratch. The more from scratch food is, the healthier it is. Processed food that we find already in the grocery stores, it includes so many additives and so many chemicals that you really can't label it as being on the positive of the health side. Sometimes it's not necessarily negative, it could be neutral. Most of the time it's pretty negative when it's something processed. We're talking about as fresh as we can get. If it needs to spoil in the fridge, mostly to be healthy. I'm not saying that canned things aren't healthy. it's less healthy than like getting raw vegetables and cooking up raw vegetables. But some things are healthier than others. You don't want, like I said, you don't want to be overwhelmed. So just try to start learning about nutrition gradually, adding things to your diet. One of the things I've done is not be so hard on myself about how I get my fruits and vegetables, and just try to get better and better. Like recently I've been learning about the ones that the fruits and vegetables that you want to always buy organic. And so I've started to try to do that. As long as you're learning gradually and increasing your knowledge about nutrition and following that knowledge up with action, your diet is going to be getting healthier and healthier. So food prep so that you have it ready, because you're going to want to just go grab it and eat it when it's time. And then the last supply, I think the best thing that this world technology has to offer is online grocery shopping. As a matter of fact, I am not ashamed to say we get our groceries delivered every week, and that's for a couple reasons. First of all, I don't have to walk into a store and possibly be hungry and then see the chip aisle and the donut aisle and the bakery and, the cakes that are made. And I don't have to even look at any of that stuff. I just go to an online app and I pick out the things that I want. We used to have it picked up, but I actually have a program with my store, my local grocery store, that gives me free delivery. So it's just as free for it to be delivered to me as it is for me to go pick it up. So we do that on a weekly basis, and it has not only limited some of my stress and overwhelm with my schedule, but it is also helps me become much better and more consistent at eating healthy and meal planning, and having the same grocery time every week, and the same food prep time. And so maybe try something like that out if you haven't already, if you don't already. Grocery delivery, or even grocery pickup. If you would rather pick out, I know some people would rather pick out their own produce. Some people are very picky about their groceries being certain things, and it has to be a certain brand. And in my store's pretty good about that, but sometimes when they're out of something or another, they'll substitute. And I tend to be very flexible with that stuff. It doesn't really matter to me most of the time. Sometimes they'll send me something that I just want to send back. Most of the time it doesn't matter. So, try something like that, groceries online. Ultimately, anything that's going to help you be better at planning your meals, eating more from scratch and at home, fruits and vegetables, lean meats, whole grains, beans, and legumes, nuts, healthy oils and fats, healthy dairy. I think that unless you have some kind of medical condition, it is perfectly acceptable and healthy to eat a well-balanced diet that includes a lot of things, and can even include a little bit of junk every now and then. There's something to be said for the mental health benefits, the emotional health benefits of, treat every now and then. And I do not keep my family or my kids from that experience and those memories of just something being delicious and good and enjoyable. Now, do we do that all the time? No, it's not for daily consumption, so to speak. And I'm living proof that it's not a good idea to have treats on a consistent basis without boundaries around that, because it will really affect your health down the road. And it may not be that you get fat. It may be that you can't think well. So there's different ways that nutrition will affect your body. So anyway, try out some of those things. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. And I hope that you have a great time building your nutritional lifestyle. It's going to change your life.